We wanted to talk to the trainers and facilitators a little bit about the problem solving that are sort of woven into this entire training. We found that this is an area that needed a lot of discussion, as librarians sometimes rush to solve problems but don't spend enough time discussing the problem. So the steps we have outlined in this training should help the librarians develop another strategy for problem solving. So in this particular unit, we are going to be solving many problems together, and we're going to use a simple 6-step process to solve the problem. One of the way trainers, let me step outside just for a minute to say, one of the ways we're doing this is by having problems, very common problems that might happen in a library situation. However, some of these problems may not happen in all communities, in all libraries. You should feel free to adjust or adapt the problem so that they are more accurate for your context if need be. First problem. There is not enough technology in the library to meet the needs of our users. The librarians asked an appropriate government official for funds to buy an additional 3 tablets. The government official refused to give funding because libraries are about books, not about technology. I always like to look back at this quote from Albert Einstein because he says that we should be spending our time solving the right problem. And what he said is, if I were given 1 hour to save the planet, I would spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute resolving it. In life, we tend to do the opposite. We tend to spend more time figuring out how we're going to solve the problem without spending all the time we should be doing in defining the problem. So let's talk about an approach to define our first problem. The problem-solving process that we're going to use in this training has 6 steps. Step 1 is to solve the right problem by defining the problem. Step 2 is to take responsibility for the problem and avoid blame, something that we all do in our daily lives and something that we need to change. Step 3 is to gather information. Step 4 is to discuss solutions. Step 5 is to implement the best solution. And step 6 is to review the decision. Trainers, you should know that in this particular module, we really will be focusing most on steps 1 and step 2 because that's where we felt or we have seen that the librarians need the most training and the most discussion. So let's go back to our problem. There's not enough technology in the library to meet the needs of our users. The librarians asked the appropriate government official for funds to buy an additional 3 tablets. The government official refused to give funding, saying that libraries were about books, not technology. Okay, let's stop here for a minute, and as a group, let's define this problem. And we will use a flip chart to write your answers. So, participants, what do you think is the problem here? And you might get them to say something like, I or we need to work more closely with government official to advocate for needed library resources. Or we need to be better communicators, or we need to be better advocates for technology in the library, or we need to find other sources of funding for these tablets. The answers that are really not acceptable, that are blaming, is the government official is the problem that's blaming. It's not my problem, avoiding responsibility. I have no idea, avoiding responsibility. So really go through each of their answers and try to tease out which ones are not blaming and are taking responsibility.